We're back for another jam-packed episode of your source for daily fantasy news and degenerate gambling breakdowns. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. And ooh, baby, we got you covered on today's show. We're talking about these LA Kings. Can they keep cooking? What are the New York Rangers up to with 8 straight victories? We're taking a look at the best updated cup odds and what teams are going to be the busiest ahead of this upcoming deadline. Let's tap in and let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? Shout out to the everydayers. Much love for making us your first listen every single day. You know you're tapped into the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. And on this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. My goodness me, my friends, there is never a shortage of topics to cover on this show, and today is no exception. We're talking about these LA Kings. The NHL is a very interesting subject, isn't it, Steele? One day they're hot, the next day they're all on them. But listen, we got to talk about it. These LA Kings are cooking. Are they for real? What fantasy pieces are getting it done for them? We're going to take a look at that because there's value to be had. Also, New York Rangers, 8 in a row. You and I, this used to be the Blue Shirt Pod. Haven't talked about them as much lately, so that's why we're going to chat a little bit about the New York Rangers. Updated Stanley Cup odds. We're going to join Fanduel.com to see what is going on with the latest deal. That'll be a quickie. And, of course, what teams are going to be the most active, maybe need to make some trades. I know I'm intrigued for your take on this. Thursday's betting breakdown. Got to keep it rolling, baby. But right over to you, my friend. LA Kings. They fire their coach. They're playing better. Quinton Byfield. Maybe we start there. But I'm really liking the chemistry right now on that third line between Pierre-Luc Dubois. I wanted to say a firing of the coach could have turned him around. And I just want to say he's looking like a different player right now. And I'm loving that angle with Quinton Byfield.
Yeah, well, he is looking like a greater player right now. We'll touch on Pierre-Luc Dubois, but the Kings are rolling. In fact, 4-game win streak, 6-3-1 in their last 10. But like you said, we have to start with Quinton Byfield and that spectacular goal that he pulled off against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, that's got to be up there for a goal of the year candidate. With probably Connor McDavid or something. But that was unbelievable.
That's up there for sure.
I mean, it was incredible just watching the entire play. I watched it on repeat for almost 10 minutes straight because it was one of the most terrific goals I've seen this season. Jumps on the loose puck off the faceoff in the defensive zone. Full speed ahead, down the ice, 1-on-2 situation against Werenski and Bokvist, and absolutely undresses Werenski, slides the puck through his skates, kicks the puck back to himself with only one hand on the stick, recovers the puck, drops to one knee, and buries the backhander. I mean, spectacular goal from Quinton Byfield. This kid is going to be absolutely sensational for the Kings for many years to come. And I'm just very happy for him, honestly. He's finally playing his first full season in the NHL. He's almost doubled his points from last year. He has 42 points in 52 games, 107 shots, while doing all of that under 16 minutes of ice time. And this is the butter, the cherry on top right here. He's only rostered at 45% on Yahoo and 23% on ESPN. He's been absolutely cooking. The Kings are cooking right now. I mean, if you don't go pick up Quinton Byfield at this point, I mean, he's out there. He's open. You got to pick him up. They've got an easy schedule coming up for the remainder of the week. The Nashville Predators and the Anaheim Ducks, who have been absolutely awful. The top line for the Kings is firing. But with all that being said, the real test for me comes next week because they're on a 3-game road trip, a Canadian road trip with back-to-back games against the Edmonton Oilers and Calgary Flames, and then to finish off the week against the Vancouver Canucks. So that's going to be a tough test and a true test for the LA Kings to see if they are legitimate. And again, when we get to, teams about being active, I think the Kings will be one of those teams maybe. Like we've talked about with some of the guests on the show, they should probably target a goaltender if they don't have a ton of faith in Phoenix Copley and Cam Talbot. But, maybe that's something that we can talk about later in the episode. But Quinton Byfield, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Adrian Kempe, your boy, they've been really good so far the last 10 games.
And actually, I think it's been David Riddick in the cage instead of Felix Copley with the injury. But David Riddick has actually been very solid. There is so much that I want to say after you just so eloquently covered what's going on for this LA Kings team. Number one, Quinton Byfield's goal was absolutely sensational. Man. And this kid can skate.
Yeah.
And I was looking at some numbers. I didn't know if you knew this, but the highest recorded skater in the NHL this year was actually Owen Tippett. Owen Tippett set the speed record. So that's just a little nugget of information. Anyway, Quinton Byfield, shout out to Newmarket, Ontario. Good Newmarket boy, good Sudbury Wolf product. Shout out to OHL as well. You know, I like to get those plugs in, Steele. Quinton Byfield in the same amount of games from last season. Sorry, he's had 52 this year, 53 he played last year. He's almost doubled his point total in the same amount of games. You got to pay attention to when players have really, look, the confidence, right? It's permeating his play. And this is what happens. We know he's had all the ability in the world, and the skating ability is definitely there. And look at this LA Kings team go, because you and I, at least I was, I'll speak for myself, was very close to counting this team out after the way that they kind of let me down after such a hot start. You know, I've been on all this LA Kings team, Adrian Kempe and otherwise, for about a year and a half, Steele. So I love seeing this happen. I still think they are one of the more active teams at the deadline, at least in terms of trying to acquire a goalie. That's my opinion. You and I are going to talk a little bit about some teams that we think need to make that move around the break. We also going to talk about some updated Stanley Cup odds. And before we get to the New York Rangers, I just want to leave it at this with this New York Rangers, LA Kings team, Steele. They are going to have to go through, you alluded to that West Coast trip. Number one, they're on the West Coast, so maybe that helps a little bit. But Calgary, Vancouver, and Edmonton are all playing very good hockey right now. So I think we'll see, number one, we're going to see what they're made of, this LA Kings squad, very soon after that trip. I think we'll have a much better vibe on what they'll do. But they're going to have to go through some really good teams in the West. So if they want to put themselves in the conversation of Vegas, Edmonton, Colorado, Dallas, I'm going to need to see them really go back to the way that they played at the start of the season, and I'll be buying into it. However, what I am buying into is this New York Rangers club, especially when Igor Shesterkin plays his game.
Yeah.
This is one of the best, most balanced blue lines in the business. You and I are all in on their forward group. We love what's going on with Zibanejad, Vincent Trocheck, and others. Hit me with your take on this Blue Shirts team. I know you have a lot to say, but I would say this. At 77 points, 1 point back of now the Eastern Conference leading Florida Panthers, we know this Rangers team has been on the doorstep for the last number of years, Steele, and they just haven't been able to get it done in the postseason, have they?
Yeah, that's been the problem for the New York Rangers over the last 3-4 years. This team has been very well constructed over that time. Getting Artemi Panarin, getting a contract done with Vincent Trocheck. I can't remember if he was traded there or if he signed free agency at this point, but I believe he might have been traded as well. But Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, Adam Fox, they have all of the pieces in place. And if they can just figure out a way to get it done in the playoffs, I've said this over the last two seasons, the New York Rangers have been one of those teams for me that they are right there to win a Stanley Cup, and it's going to come close, or it's going to come soon. If it's not this year, it's probably going to be in the next 2 to 3 years. They're just that good, and they have all the right pieces, but getting it done in the playoffs has been a negative factor for them. But just some of their players right now, like Artemi Panarin is playing on a godlike tier. He's well on his way to pass his career high. He's tied his career high in goals this year with 32 in 56 games. I mean, he's an absolute stud out there for them. I really like the play of Alexis Lafreniere. He's looked a lot better this season. Mika Zibanejad has always been a favorite of mine. I always try to get him in at least 1 or 2 of my fantasy leagues.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy about the New York Rangers being on this 8-game win streak, especially winning against the Colorado Avalanche, the Tampa Bay Lightning, Calgary Flames, the big comeback against the New York Islanders, and win against the Dallas Stars. But you said it yourself. If Igor Shesterkin can start to play on his game that we know that he can, this team is going to be hard to beat. And there's a lot of good teams in the Eastern Conference, but the New York Rangers might be second right behind the Florida Panthers right now.
And you know what it takes to win in the postseason, Steele. And, they've not been able to translate that regular season game into the playoffs. But look at how they have been getting it done. They have the 6th best penalty killing unit in the NHL, 5th best power play unit. Special teams in the postseason, Steele, I'm a broken record here. You can't afford to miss out on those opportunities, and you can't let your opponent score on you with the man advantage. That's just how it gets done.
Yeah, and just one last thing as well. We talked. I mentioned Vincent Trocheck a little bit. Like we talked about that the other day on another episode about some of the most underrated players. Vincent Trocheck is right up there as one of the most versatile players, right up there with Joel Eriksson Ek. He almost does everything you could dream of
Yes, sir.
as a fantasy GM. So he's one of those
Yes,
guys
sir.
that gets he drops a little bit in the draft board, but when you're able to draft him, he's an absolute stud for your fantasy team.
Vincent Trocheck is one of those guys that helps you fill out your lineup so nicely. Joel Eriksson Ek for sure. And then when he has those offensive pops, which he very much can do, you have big nights. And that's if you can, acquire even one or two of those players on your team, Steele. I've said this before about the likes of Brady Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk, and some of those banger league beauties. Trocheck fits that mold very much, so obviously in a bit of a different tier than the Tkachuks. I'm not crazy. But if you can even get multiple of those kinds of players on your team, usually you're sitting pretty. And anyway, we're going to sit pretty for the rest of this episode. If my cat stops going crazy, that would be super helpful. This is why. Shout out to the dogs out there. Mika, one time I miss you. But anyway, the rest of the show, we're talking about updated Stanley Cup odds. We're talking about what teams are going to be the most active at the trade deadline and why. And we got Thursday's big time betting breakdown, 11 games on tap. But today's episode is brought to you by our new friends at Ibotta. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies to toys. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, so you can buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you've been dying to go to, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps that give you points don't amount to much with Ibotta. Just add your offers into the app, upload the receipt, and get real cash that you can cash out in your bank account. Join over 50 million users and earn cash back every time you shop on over 2,700 brands and retailers from Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying the app by using code LOCKEDONNHL when you register. Go to the App Store or Google Play and download for free the Ibotta app and start earning cash back. Use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONNHL.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you go over to the YouTube channel. Check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. You can also find it on Amazon Fire TV. They are here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. So make sure you go check out the YouTube channel, subscribe, and also check it out on Amazon Fire TV. Look at that beautiful little creature right there.
Yeah, this is a Thundercat.
The Thundercat, indeed. He's got a nice little purr on him.
He won't shut up, so that's my bad to all the listeners out there. But it's a bonus to all the viewers out there because we're bringing in some cat content. That's got to be good for the algorithm, Steele. Anyway, my bad for interrupting your preamble. But why don't you take us right into this updated odds situation? Because I got the board up, but there's some interesting angles here, and I think there's something to be said about getting some value on some of these teams right on the edge. I don't know if you've had a look at these odds, but what are you thinking about when we're taking a look at this general cup conversation as well?
Yeah, I've got a few of my favorites up here. I've got at least the top 7 on my sheet right now, and at the very top of the list are the Florida Panthers at plus 800. I mean, they deserve to be up there. They're playing incredible hockey. I absolutely love Paul Maurice as the head coach. He's the right guy at the helm. He knows how to get his team going every single night, and for that matter. So I love the Florida Panthers right now at plus 800. That's some great odds right there. Right behind them, the Colorado Avalanche at plus 850. Completely understand that. What worries me about the Avalanche, though, is Alexander Georgiev. We've mentioned that many times. He's had a huge workload this season. He's played a lot of games. I think that might be a negative factor when it comes to the postseason because of how intense it can be.
Of course.
But my 3 favorites at number 1 is obviously the Florida Panthers at plus 800.
Okay.
I think they can truly get it done this year after making it to the finals last year. So I think that's great odds for the Florida Panthers. Number 2, we just talked about them. The New York Rangers at plus 1100. Yeah. Absolutely love the odd right there.
Sure.
I think they have everything in the making as well. Just hopefully Shesterkin can be on top of his game in the postseason. But this one might actually be my favorite. I don't think we can, when we're talking about Stanley Cup odds, we can't forget about the reigning Stanley Cup champions here. Vegas Golden Knights at plus 1,400.
100%.
Great odds right now. When their entire roster is healthy, Jack Eichel, Jonathan Marchessault, William Karlsson, of course, Ivan Barbashev in the playoffs is unreal. Aiden Hill, when he's in the playoffs, is unreal. He's been terrific this entire season. Shea Theodore's back now. Alex Petrangelo, Alec Martinez. They have a lot of guys. Well, I guess now they have a lot of guys who have won a Stanley Cup, but even before they won last year, they've had a lot of guys who have won previously in the NHL. You can't forget about the reigning Stanley Cup champs.
And gone on deep Stanley Cup runs as a unit. So number one at the top of my list for value, plus 1,400, the Vegas Golden Knights. It has to be said, most definitely. And I'm not on here to disrespect a team like the Boston Bruins, who have the goaltending tandem to carry them. They just don't have the offensive depth and firepower, in my opinion, to go. Look, they were taken out by the Florida Panthers. So was our team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. We don't need to talk about that. The best team won in both of those situations. But I'm not looking at the Bruins at plus 100. So my three teams to round it out, it would be the Vegas Golden Knights at plus 1,400. Then me, Steele, the Dallas Stars at plus 1,000. And it's hard to take multiple teams out of the same conference if we're talking about actually laying multiple wagers. So I would obviously err on the side of caution if you're actually going to go out there and do that. Be careful how much you hedge. Hedging bets does usually work, but just be wary. My last one would be another one out of the West. It's the Edmonton Oilers. That was my pick at the start of the year, and they have the two best players on the planet when they're going. And I know Leon Draisaitl is not in the mix with Kucherov, McKinnon, and the others at the top of the league. But oh me, oh my, Connor McDavid most definitely is. And he is good enough to take this team at least to the second or third round on his own when he's clicking. Is Stuart Skinner going to hold up? Is the blue line going to do its thing now with Matthias Ekholm in tow? And they've really figured it out. That defensive system of Jay Woodcroft is out the door. We know all about it in Edmonton. Can they push it over the top and get to a Stanley Cup? They've been right there. So it would be Oilers, it would be Stars, and it would be Golden Knights. In my opinion, the quality is out west once again, Steele. This year, I think the last couple of years we've been mentioning at length that it's been the East swinging that quality. So many good Eastern Conference teams. But with Vancouver, with Colorado, with all of these teams out west, I'm going to say the West has that power once again. Hit me with your take on that, and let's quickly talk about teams that are going to be busy at the deadline.
I still believe the power's out east. And, I understand the Vancouver Canucks are having a very successful season. I understand all of this, but I still, at the top of the board, the Florida Panthers, I don't want to discredit the Boston Bruins because they have that playoff intensity. When it comes to the postseason, they're a tough team to play against. And again, one of the best tandems, if not the best tandem, in Linus Ullmark and Jerry Swayman. So Florida Panthers, Boston Bruins, we talked about the New York Rangers. We're going to mention this tomorrow, but the Carolina Hurricanes, if Frederick Anderson comes back and he's ready to go, they're going to be a dangerous team as well.
Could be huge.
And then this is actually the team. So I guess I'll just get right into it at this
segue,
point.
Baby.
This is the team that I think will be active at the deadline and could be a threat as well in the Stanley Cup postseason if they potentially make it. And that's the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning are always active when it comes to the trade deadline.
That's
typically
a fact.
They get their deals done well in advance, a week or two before the actual deadline. Just going a few examples over the last few years. Tanner Jeannot last year in 2023, Nicholas Paul and Brandon Hagel in 2022, Blake Coleman in 2020, where he won back-to-back Stanley Cups with them. And I think with the injury to Mikhail Sergachev, we could see them take a little bit of a different route than going after a top six or a bottom six forward in their lineup. And we could actually see them target a defenseman this year, like Noah Hannafin or Chris Tanev and Jacob Chychrun, to fill that spot for Mikhail Sergachev. And that kind of fills in nicely with this updated Stanley Cup odds. If they are to make a trade at the deadline and you place a bet right now, they're at plus 2,600 and they're still a threat. They've still got Kucherov. They still have Vasilevsky, Stamkos, and so many more players. So if they make a trade deadline, acquisition, a target, and they're able to target someone and acquire them, that could really change the fluctuations of the updated Stanley Cup odds.
I like that you're taking a look at this deep, Steele. I really appreciate this deep cut. And I'm going to give you one right after the break when I talk about the team that I think is going to have to be. Yes. I'm thinking as a have to be. I understand your angle with the Tampa Bay Lightning, but for me, this club is just so close. Anyway, let me talk about it after the break. Why don't you take us there? We also got big time bets coming up.
Big time bets, where the money is made. But first, this episode is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed now. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Something I really love about it is that it makes hiring all in one place so easy. With the Instant Match feature, Indeed does all the hard work for you. Sponsor a job and boom, Instant Match shows you candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description immediately after you post. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip and I appreciate all that love and support you show us on the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with us. Flip, before we get to big time bets, what is the one team that you believe needs to be active come the trade deadline?
When I look at the Colorado Avalanche, Steele, and when I look at Cap Friendly, I look at the lineup that they're going to return next year, which is going to be, when it comes down to the pillars of this team, they're going to run it back the same way. So when I look at a team needing to make a move, I'm looking at it this way. I'm looking at it at the angle that you've already mentioned with Alexander Georgiev. He leads the league in games played with 47, 5 more than UC Saros, and we're hearing already from people in Nashville that Saros himself is gassed. So when you look at the Colorado Avalanche, a team that, is right there at the top, as I would say, you could argue over if they're the best offensive team in the league. You could definitely say it. They're right there in terms of overall output. I think they're 5th, 4th. Anyway, Alexander Georgiev needs help. And when you look at the rest of the makeup of this team and their elite offensive ability, they're good enough to beat any team in this league. And I know the Vancouver Canucks are having a good season, but if that's the measuring stick right now, Colorado is just as good as Vancouver, if not better, when it comes to the playoff caliber and guys knowing how to get it done. This is a team only a few seasons removed from a cup, Steele, and all of these guys in that lineup were key reasons why. So I think they have to be active at the deadline because they're being able to get it done for the most part. And Georgiev is getting exposed certain nights, and they're still only 2 points back of the division lead. So when I see a team that is that close and they're still getting pumped certain nights, like take away some of these games where Georgiev has given up 6 or 7 because he's just looked absolutely gassed and it should have been probably a capable backup there instead. Where is this Colorado Avalanche team at, Steele? They might be running away with the President's Trophy. So I just wanted to make that point, and I wanted to make the point about this is a club that maybe they don't even go out and get a rental. Maybe you can try and get a goalie with term, Jacob Markstrom. Not going to happen there, but you go out and get somebody of similar ilk, and he can be a nice little tandem with Georgiev, because we know also tandems in the postseason can work. Look at the Vegas Golden Knights. They had to go that route. Let's see what happens. I know that's not exactly a great comparison, but the point to be had here is Colorado Avalanche, I think, need to be active to make sure that they don't lose out on this great opportunity to put another banner in the rafters.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. They definitely need to be active because they need something other than their backup goaltender right now, and they've kind of interchanged with backup goaltenders this season. But Alexander Georgiev has been gassed. 47 games.
Justice and Noonan.
Yes, it's changed between a couple of guys, but Georgiev's played way too many games at this point in the season, and this kind of goes to the Tampa Bay Lightning side of things. Not to say that they're lucky that Andrei Vasilevsky got injured and he had surgery and he was out for the beginning of the season. But we talked about the amount of games that went on him over the last 3 years when they were winning Stanley Cup and playing all those games. He gets injured. They got by with Jonas Johansson. He's not a great backup goaltender, but they had to do it. They got by with him. Andrei Vasilevsky comes back, and they're still fighting for a playoff spot. They're in a wild card spot right now, but they've gone in and out of the top in their division. So again, you don't want to see your starting goaltender injured, but it gave him time to a little bit to reset, rest up, and get just have that time. So, I think that's going to be a good thing for them when it comes to the postseason if they make it, and I believe they probably will. But let's get over to big time bets where the money is made. Many games on tonight, I believe. Yeah, there's 11 games on. 11 games on the schedule. In fact, I've got burned the last 2 nights with the same game parlays. I thought the Florida teams were going to absolutely destroy the Ottawa Senators. It did not go in my favor. I got destroyed. So I'll let you start. You've been doing well out there. What's your what are your picks for tonight?
I'm trying, Steele. Let's start with this Colorado Avalanche team. Why don't we? 10-0-0 in their last 10 head-to-head with the Detroit Red Wings. However, when you look at what the Detroit Red Wings have been able to do of late, they are beating some really good teams, Steele. How about over their last 10? Tampa, Vegas, Philly, Vancouver, Calgary, Seattle. Those are all really good teams, except for maybe Seattle. Those are all teams playing really good hockey of late. So I'm not going to poo-poo what the Red Wings are trying to do. And trust me when I say they remember that they have lost this many times to Colorado, because that's also a bit of a rivalry there. So I'm going to stay away from who I think is going to win this game with a cop-out on that preamble and take a look at my boy Patty Kane, who has been red hot of late and has done nothing but put up points since joining this Detroit Red Wings club. And as a former Chicago Blackhawk player, he has played quite a few games against this Colorado Avalanche team. And I dug into the numbers, Steele, because that's what I do, baby. In 54 career regular season games for Patty Kane, 57 points. Give me the anytime Patty Kane assist, because he has 36 assists in those games. That's my first pick, Steele. I don't know what you think about that one, because I think this Red Wings team, actually, if I had to pick a winner in this game, is going to keep it close. But that's just me. I'm going to cop out and go with Patty Kane anytime assist.
Yeah, it might be a close game, but I expect it to go over the number in this one, honestly. Right? So if I was going to take an over or over under, it would be the over in that matchup. I do agree with the Patty Kane anytime assist, and I guess that's where I'll start with a player prop here. And I know off the air you said jokingly that Sidney Crosby is dead to you because he's burned you the last couple of times, but he's alive and he's well in my book. So Sidney Crosby anytime assist against the Montreal Canadiens. 40 assists in 48 games against the Montreal Canadiens. I'm taking the Sidney Crosby. I think that's the first time I'm taking Sidney Crosby anytime assist this season. So I got to start. Hopefully it pans out for me on Thursday night. The next 2 picks of mine, I've got a gut feeling about this one because both teams have been, they've been playing good, but it's been, I believe they're 5-5-0 for both.
Hit me.
I believe 5-5-0 for the Calgary Flames and 4-4-2 for the Boston Bruins, something like that.
Okay.
But I'm taking the Flames on the money line at plus 112 against the Boston Bruins at home. Like you said, Jacob Markstrom's been playing unreal for them of late. I understand there's a lot of commodity around him over the trade deadline, but it's just a gut feeling of mine. Flames money line at plus 112. And if you're going to give me plus 100 for Panthers money line against the Carolina Hurricanes, I'm taking that every single day. They're on an 8-game winning streak or 6-game winning streak, I believe. What is it, Flip? You got it up?
They are 6-0 in their last 6. Yes.
6-0 in their last 6. 6-game winning streak. This team just fires on all cylinders, and they've got it done against the Carolina Hurricanes many times. So that's the final pick. That's also the lock of the night.
8-2-0, the Florida Panthers in their last 10 against the Carolina Hurricanes, Steele. And let me just keep going a little bit more. They are the best road team in the NHL this season, and I don't think it's actually they've been very close. 27-2, including, I believe, 11 straight wins away from home. So this has got to be some of those numbers that you can't ignore. Florida is just cooking right now. The numbers head-to-head, the numbers overall, I'm just going to take them. I don't even care. I'm going to ride with them as well. Money line, Florida Panthers getting plus money right now as well. You highlighted that. And my lock of the night, I don't usually do this a lot with Alex Ovechkin because, I'm a Sidney Crosby guy. But Alexander Ovechkin is back. And when you see the game he had the other night, I don't know who the Capitals beat. Hold on, I do because it's right here. They beat the New Jersey Devils 6-2. Yeah. When you see him score the goals that he's starting to score, some of those fortuitous, only goal scorers score them kind of goals, just being in the right spot at the right time, he back. Just like you were talking about Shea Theodore, hit me with that Cornelius Fudge meme. He back. So I'm taking a look at Alex Ovechkin, and when you dig into the numbers here for Ovi in his career against the Tampa Bay Lightning that we've been talking about, the Tampa Bay Lightning have been pretty good, but they've also been getting exposed.
Yeah.
So I'm liking this angle here for Ovi. And then you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning numbers, Steele. Ovechkin has only scored more points against one other team in his NHL career. Tampa Bay Lightning, he has 50 goals in 79 games and 95 points. So give me Alexander Ovechkin anytime goal as my lock of the night. I'm really feeling this one, Steele. Aside from the numbers, just watching a little bit of that game the other night, Ovi's back. He's closing in on that record. And now that he tastes that blood in the water again, I'm going to say you're going to see a big end of the season from Ovechkin.
I hope so. And I'm absolutely loving the player props from you on today's episode. Love those. Gonna have to hammer all of these picks on Thursday night. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, make your way over to the YouTube channel of Locked On Sports Today. They're here for you 24/7. You can also find it on Amazon Fire TV now. Again, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts, plus the national shows covering every single league. Thank you again so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.